Hi everyone, I'm Adrian, that's Philip, that's Jay. We're from Audio Excellence in Canada, and today we're going to talk about an event that just happened last Saturday. That was December the 14th. Wendell Diller from Magnepan came by, and he's actually doing a tour, about 4 stores for now, showing the new prototype Magnepan 30.7 minis, or as he likes to call it, the concept speaker for condos and small rooms. The speaker is not available for sale. It's something that they've been working on, and it sort of was derived from when Wendell a few months ago was going all through U.S. and Canada, demoing the new top of the line called the 30.7, and sound of the speakers are fabulous, but speakers are huge. So you imagine 4 panels, 2 each side. The base panels are really wide and about 7 feet tall, and then the mids and the highs are maybe half as wide and again 7 feet tall. So they really take up a lot of space. And one of the constant feedback that he was getting was, can you give us that sound in a more manageable size? And so Wendell and his team decided to go back and try and figure that out. And what they've got is the this concept speaker where the panel is directly derived from the 30.7s. And it's only about a foot wide, so 12 inches wide, 6 feet tall, and about 1.5 inches or so deep. So much, much smaller. And then with separate dynamic woofers, which are dipole designed. So it's an open baffle. There's no enclosure as such other than panels to mount the woofers on. Each side has 4 6.5-inch woofers, and you can place them in a variety of different locations, so they're not quite as fussy. And then the system will come with a DSP system, digital signal process, where the woofers will be integrated to the panel. And the main objective that Wendell had in doing all of this is to have seasoned listeners, audiophiles, music lovers, fans, to tell him if Magnepan has succeeded in integrating the woofer modules to the main panels in such a way so that you can barely hear, if at all, the integration. Because ultimately Magnepan knows that their panels sound great. That's what they're known for, and they've been doing this for so many years, so they know that's a no-brainer. The issue has always been, can they get bass and dynamics out of these panels? And to come back to something earlier, this is not a new idea. Magnepan owners, dipole owners, electrostatic owners have for years tried to integrate separate woofers or subwoofers with their beloved panels, and invariably very, very difficult to cohere because you have 2 very different technologies. You have a woofer or subwoofer, which is typically enclosed, and the radiation pattern is very different than a panel where the radiation pattern is front and back. And so for seasoned listeners or for careful listeners, they can typically pick out where the woofers are and where they start and where the panels start. So that's the main objective of this event. And we organized 3 focus groups. Each group consisted of about 10 people. And so we had about 30 people altogether with about 6 women, and we got great feedback in terms of people willing to give Wendell what they thought. And in fact, you can check out the feedback on Canuck Audio. There's a thread under the forums section and see what they thought. We also did a recording of the event. So when Jay's finished editing it, we'll post it and you can have a look and see what people say. Anyway, this is actually our second attempt at doing this video. The first attempt, unfortunately, didn't go well. The audio got all screwed up, so we decided to do it again. Kind of reminds me of an old joke, how do you make $1 million in the audio industry? You start with 2. So, Jay, why don't you give us your thoughts about the event?
The Magnepan Mini 30.7 was just mind-blowing. Now, obviously, we've carried a lot of Magnepan speakers in the store. I've owned a fair share of my own Magnepans, and one big problem was that they were always big. And 30.7s, I loved the fact that they sounded so great, but they were just simply too big. And I still remember when I first got my Tiffany 4s, I had them for a very short time because they were just too big. They were in my basement, and my basement seemed small with those speakers around. Now, and Wendell comes up with this great idea to have a mini 30.7, and I was skeptical. To tell you the truth, I was very skeptical of the fact that these little thin panels can create a sound like that. And the big question Wendell was trying to ask was, did the mid-bass integration work? And I think it did. All the tracks were just absolutely stunning. There were I didn't hear the woofer at all. If in fact Wendell didn't tell me there were woofers, I wouldn't have known. And in fact, he did this little trick where in the beginning of the listening session, he played one track without the woofer, and then he said, "So did you guys hear any kind of woofer on its own?" Hopefully not, because we didn't have the woofer. And I was mind blown, and a lot of the people were listening, were mind blown because it sounded so great without the woofer. The bass impact was still pretty darn good without the woofer. And then he adds the woofer in the second cut, and it's just a totally different speaker. The slam that wasn't existent in other Magnepans, in my opinion, before, was there. And so for me, in the 3 hours in that room filming the event, it was an honor to listen to the mini 30.7s. It was an incredible experience.
Okay, Philip, what did you think?
So I have to top that. Okay. Because in the other version of this video, I spoke first, and it's much easier.
It's always hard to go second, isn't it?
So at the 30.7 event, which happened in the summer, my recollection is that at one point I must have asked Wendell some question about, well, those panels are really big. How does the typical person, put something like that in their house? And Wendell smirked at me and he said, "Well, Philip, we have something in the works." And I said, "Well, Wendell, what is it? Tell me, please." And then he smirked again. He said, "Well, we've got a DSP project that's happening, and it's going to be a small woofer system, and we've already prototyped it, and at some point we're going to tour it again." I thought, well, yeah, that's going to take another 1 or 2 years before it gets here. And then suddenly, of course, I answered the phone a few weeks ago. It was Wendell, and he says, "I'm coming up to Toronto." And I said, "I didn't know this." And of course, he had already been talking to you, Adrian, and so he was here. And so I'm listening to the speaker, and he's playing something, and he's being a little bit tricky about it, because we kind of, went through some scenarios, and he used those scenarios, and of course he played it without the woofer system. And I thought, well, that sounds really good. Just, I can't hear the woofer at all. And he says, I'm not playing the woofer. Now I'm going to play the woofer. And he starts playing the woofer, and my God, I was gobsmacked. It was dynamic. The soundstage increased in size. It had weight and heart, and it had a warmth that I'd not heard from Magnepan speakers before. I mean, they're always very fast. They have a big soundstage already, and there's just always a direct connection to who to the music and to who you are. And the woofer system made all of that just much more, and in an easier fashion than I could imagine. It, to me, sounded more dynamic and bigger than the 30.7 with the 4 panels. I was just amazed. I have no other words for it. I would buy it if I could buy it.
Oh yeah, I'm already saving for it.
Yeah. So I would buy it.
Yeah, after that event, I went home and I just said, I'm gonna start saving for it.
You have to understand the woofer setup that he has. I could pick up both of them in my hands like this, literally. They're not expensive drivers. The innovation is in the software and the implementation of that DSP program. So I think there's a really bright future ahead for them if they can get this thing off the ground and actually market it. It's a pretty amazing product.
Thank you. Yeah, so my opinions mirror the two guys, so this is going to be a pretty boring thing. The just to add a little bit, for me, the everything that Magnepans are always known for, their effortlessness, their airiness, the big sound stage, the remarkable detail, speed, it's all there. The lack of coloration, it's all there. But now imagine all the things that people have always said, I wish if only Magnepans could do this. Well, now this does. It has unbelievable slam at the levels we were playing in. The room is about 18 by 24, so not a small room, and the ceiling is about 20 feet. So it's not a small room. We because we're located in an industrial unit, the city has very specific rules about what kind of ceilings you're allowed to have, and so we have acoustic panels, and you can probably see that in this video. But the actual ceiling, hard ceiling, is about 20 feet high. So these speakers were filling the room effortlessly. And we were playing it loud. Wendell was, I think, cranking it at about 80%.
Yeah, we had a Macintosh C49 preamp hooked up to that system, and I looked at where Wendell had the setting. It was like 78 to 83% of what the preamp was putting out to a 400 watt Parasound amp. So, and that amp was, well, it was getting warm.
So yeah, so the speakers were just handling everything that Wendell was throwing at, and again, there was no indication at all in terms of where the woofers left off and the panels took over. It was just seamless. Something that I never thought the day would come where for somebody really fussy that they would easily pick it out. And I don't think that you could easily pick out, especially if you're really honest with yourself. If you sat down and decided to put your audiophile picky hat on, maybe. But then if I said, okay, well, what's the frequency where they crossed over at? I think you'd be guessing at that point. They did a great job. Also, just to elaborate, the woofer enclosures, imagine a triangle and then you stretch it vertically. So it's about 3 feet tall. We have pictures. If you go to the Canuck Audio forums, we took some pictures. You can see the woofer enclosure. So imagine a triangle, 3 feet tall, and then 4 woofers, 2 on either side, 6.5 inch, and they're driven by a dedicated 500 watt Class D amplifier that Wendell brought with him. And that was it. And in fact, even the setup, Wendell had mentioned the first stop, I think, was in Chicago, and the room that they were in was very tricky, and they didn't even get a chance. Wendell and his wife didn't even get a chance to rest, shower, and eat something before the event happened. Whereas in our case, we left them to unpack because he basically essentially kicked us out. And a few minutes later, music was on, and
he said, "It's done."
Yeah, we were golf. We came in, and everybody was blown away when this was before the actual event. We were lucky enough to get a preview first.
And in our room,
yeah,
he said that there's no mid bass bloat, which happened at the other venue. Yeah. So our room, even though it's a weird configuration, it's big actually in volume. He was able to dial that thing in even before I could even ask him questions about how he set it up, which he never really told me, but he did it really quickly. Yeah, and he was quite happy with it. It was like, first try, it was good.
Yeah. So that's good news. It means that those speakers are not going to be very difficult to set up. So I think we all look forward to Wendell and his team putting them out. As I said earlier, he was very careful to keep repeating that this is just a concept. He's not promising that they will actually go into production. But I think with so much positive feedback from the 2 stops so far, and I think he's actually doing a couple more either already or has in the process of doing it, I think anybody who hears them with an open mind will be blown away by the results. I mean, the 3 of us were pretty jaded in some ways because we get to play with some really amazing things. And so for us to hear something that good is wonderful. A lot of people have been asking about pricing. Again, Wendell was non-committal, partly because, again, it's not an actual production unit. But my guess is it will probably land between the 20.7 and 30.7. So maybe about 20,000 US, thereabouts. My hope is that if they can get it to 10 US, it'll be a huge success in sales. And I really want that for Magnepan because it would be great for anybody who's striving for something reference class. And at $10,000, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's literally nothing like it. And the other thing that Wendell mentioned was that the woofers, I think if they go into production, the woofers will be available separately for Magnepan owners, and I assume other panel owners as well. So hopefully they do that. I thought I'd also mention so that you guys can also check out these tracks because Wendell's objective was predominantly to ask for feedback regarding integration between bass and the panels. He chose two cuts. First is a Poem of Chinese Drums by Hockman Yim. Jay will add inserts of the covers so you can look for these cuts. And then the other one, which Wendell uses regularly, is Dance of the Tumblers from the Snow Maiden reference recordings, and it's recorded by the Minnesota Orchestra. And then Jay, when Wendell asked for additional tracks, Jay recommended 4. My Favorite Things by Yoon Sun-na, Jean-Pierre by Marcus Miller, Electrified by Boris Blank, and Hot Spade by Oh Yoon-sun. I know. Okay. I just screwed that up. I think that's it. If there's anything else that you guys want to add before we sign off?
All the tracks and the links will be in the description below. So make sure to check in case.
So wait, why did he like your tracks and not the ones that we mentioned, like Adrian and Sat?
I don't know.
I don't think I mentioned anything. But
sure you did.
I did?
Maybe.
No, I don't think I did.
Well, he didn't like my tracks then.
He doesn't like you.
Wendell liked my tracks. So there you go. He was like, that's spot on, Jay. That's great. That's a great track.
Well, Wendell was absolutely in love with Jay because he was all excited about how of the 4 or 5 stops that he was going to do, we were doing this huge production of videoing, taping it. I had sent him an email prior to his arriving because Wendell was actually, so this is a bit of a backstory. Wendell was really concerned about this event. He didn't want the event to be like a typical meet and greet, come see the manufacturers, ask them questions kind of an event. It wasn't supposed to be, let's have fun, get together, listen to some music. It was literally focus groups. Can you guys confirm that what we're doing is on the right track? Are we doing the right thing? What do you guys think of the panels? Is that size okay for, a small condo and so on? And so he wanted people who were willing to help out. So I sent him an email saying that, well, this is what we can do. We'll film it, and then we'll edit it so you can post it on the forums and people can see the links and check out the feedback from attendees. We're going to ask our attendees to post on forums as well, not just say it sounds great and then go home. We actually will ask them to post on forums. So one of our friends and attendees, Saturn, runs this one of the largest exotic car clubs in North America, and the entire time that he was here, he was tweeting it out. He was going on his social media and just telling everybody how amazed he was with the results. So if you search for Twitter, Saturn, I think it's, I can't remember his, we'll get the links and post it down so you can actually check out what he said. And so anyway, so when Wendell showed up, he was just shocked at all the hardware that Jay had brought. I mean, Jay brought these crazy lights and, cameras everywhere. We had, I think, 3 cameras going, 1 on each side, and then Jay was holding on to a camera as well. We had microphones everywhere. Wendell, we got to tell you this story.
Oh my God.
Wendell was holding on to a camera so he could talk into it. And then we have boom mics right over the audience so that we can pick up what they were saying. And the idea was, okay, Wendell, when you're doing your presentation, please talk into the mic. And then when the audience has feedback, please hand your microphone over to the audience. And Wendell was looking at me going, I can't do that. I'll forget. I can barely walk and chew gum at the same time. Well, we thought he was joking. Jay, why don't you carry that on? Because this is the funny part.
So we had the boom microphones as a backup. And so I told Wendell, it's okay if you forget. We still have the backup for the boom poles. Just remember to use the microphone for yourself. And I thought, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, everything is good. Everything is good. And in fact, I had another microphone that I had in my hand so that extra caution, right? But then, out of all things, Wendell starts using the microphone as a pointing stick. So now I'm seeing my mixer, which we are using right now, and you can see the audio signal going like this, going really, really small, and then really, really big, really, really small as he fluctuates back and forth. And I'm going like, how am I gonna edit this? How am I gonna do it? So
that's why there's gonna be like kind of a vocal insertion there.
Well, no, I'm gonna have to literally mix and master his voice in a way that audio engineer does.
So this will be like a deep fake then.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a very funny side of Wendell that I experienced.
Yeah, and all through during his presentations, I would from time to time step in and just observe to make sure everything was okay. Most of the time I was outside mingling with guests and making sure everything was okay. So I would step in, and sure enough, his microphone is like this. He's just holding on to it. He's just talking to everybody. And I would point to his microphone. I would do this. I'm off camera doing this. And then I finally catch his eye. He goes, I can't remember. And his literally would say, I can't remember to do this. This is crazy. And he said,
Wendell's been in the industry a long time, but his claim has always been that he's a marketing guy. He's not a sales guy. He's a marketing guy. Marketing guys usually stand in the background, and now he's being pushed to the front, and he's going to have to do like a sales presentation in a sense. You, Jay, myself, we're all very, easy with that. We find that comfortable because that's our job every day. But for Wendell, that's not always what he has to do. So that.
I would dispute that. There's nothing difficult in holding a microphone.
Well, apparently there is.
Well, the other thing that was funny was that just before the event started, we pointed out where the cameras were.
Oh my God!
And said, okay, Wendell, whatever you do, stay between the speakers. Do not cover or stand in front of the cameras. And sure enough, as soon as it starts, he goes and he starts blocking the cameras. And even his wife Galina was in the room, and she'd point to him, and a couple of times we'll have to edit it out. She'll actually talk up and say, move away from the microphone, or move away from the cameras.
The funny thing was that, so we had two cameras, right? And probably the only usable frame, Adrian, to tell you quite frankly, is the one that I was holding. Because one camera, at the very beginning, Wendell, for some reason, out of all these spots, decided to stand right in front of that camera. And I waved at him, and then he looked at me and he moved like an inch. And the other camera was actually, quite frankly, blocked by his wife. So she was giving signs to Wendell about the other camera, but then at the same time she was blocking it with her hand because she didn't realize that camera was a wide angle for capturing all the audience. So she was standing right beside it, thinking that it's not capturing her, it's capturing like her hands doing the gestures.
Would this make a good show on Netflix?
Oh yeah, this yeah.
You know what? We should actually not edit. We'll just show it in 3 frames, right? Post it in 3 frames, and it'll go viral. Hey, maybe that's what we should do, right?
That
as long as you're an audiophile with a sense of humor, you'll have a great time because that was funny.
I remember you sending me a text message saying like, "Oh, great job on Saturday. When we come back on Tuesday, let me take a look at the raw footages." And I said, "Uh-oh, he's gonna have a heck of a time looking at this."
So anyway, this video has gone long enough. Thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, as usual, please post them at the bottom, comments about what you thought about what we talked about in terms of the Magnepan 30.7 concept speakers. again, if you guys want to see the speakers, send an email to Wendell. I believe it's info@magnepan.com, but go on the website and check it out, and just let him know that you would really like to see this speaker as a reality and not just a concept. Also, if you like the videos that we put out, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you'll know when we post a new video. And again, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.